Hi, I'm Raeanna, and this watercolor tutorial is for anyone that feels like they are just not artistic. We're going to keep it so simple by using only 3 colors. I have New Gamboge, Quinacridone Rose, and French Ultramarine. But you can use any warm yellow, cool red, or warm blue that you wish. It doesn't matter which brand. We are also going to be using watercolor brushes that are round, number 3 and number 10. Here is an example. It doesn't matter which brand. I just prefer to have that pointy tip. As for watercolor paper, I highly suggest you use 100% cotton paper. It will make a huge difference on the outcome of your painting. This is a watercolor block, which means it's glued on all the sides, which keeps the paper laying flat and makes it a lot easier to paint on. Okay, so I'm going to use my number 10 round brush. I'm going to get it wet, and I'm going to put just a little bit of Quinacridone Rose at the tip. And I'm going to make a dot, and then I'm going to start making lines all around this dot. So that's going to be the center of your rose. It's going to be a little messy, a little loose, and that's okay. So just make your lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mine sure aren't. And I'm just going around. And if you're asking me, well, what's the plan? How many? Which way? Plan? We ain't got no plan. We are just putting lines around until it looks like a flower. That's the plan. So here we go. See how I kind of push down a little bit, and as I use my brush more and more, there's less pigment on it, so it's getting lighter. So I'm going to add a little bit of pigment to it, and I'm going to put it along the top while the petals are still wet, so it has that separation in that dimension. And now I'm using a clean brush to kind of just soften out the transition from the line into the petal. Okay, we're going to start with a little bit of pigment on the brush. Make sure you have a little bit extra on the tip. And we're going to make more petals by making lines going around. So I have most of my brush is wet, but I have the color on the tip. So I'm making a line here. I'm going to clean off my brush and drag it down. Okay, and I'm going to do that same thing again. I'm going to take some pigment on the tip of my brush. I'm going to drag it around, just kind of wiggle it. Remember, flower petals can go different ways. They can wrinkle, so I'm just trying to mimic that natural motion to the petal. So just wiggle it around and keep adding lines going around the structure. And then I use my wet brush to kind of drag the pigment down a little bit, and it will naturally disperse over time. Do it again with some more Quinacridone Rose on the tip. Clean off my brush. And then bring it down. This is a quick and messy rose. This is meant to look very abstract, very loose, not highly detailed, but it's still gonna come out pretty cool. It's amazing how much your brain does to fill in the pieces once you have images and shapes in front of you. You're not really worried about the picture as a whole as you're doing it. You're just looking and making a shape. Now I'm sure if we were trying to do something more realistic and working off of a reference, there'd be a lot more thought going into it, but doing these abstract, loosely painted roses, these are really great just to kind of relax and enjoy the process. You're just going with the flow, whatever feels right. If there's a space that looks like it can use a petal, I throw it in there. I'm going to put a little bit more pigment on the end because I lifted up too much there. But see, it's really easy to just make the colors. It looks like the petals folding over there. And now I'm going to fill this in a little bit. So there's a lot of white happening here. So I'm just taking some very light pink, not trying to add too much here, but just enough to remove some of the white. Let's add a little bit more pink here. A little bit of a shadow here. And now we'll do the same thing here. Make a little flower. I didn't have very much pigment, so I'm going to try it again. There we go. Some pigment, and then I will drag it down. See, it's the same kind of technique over and over again, and you're just going to do it layer by layer until it starts to look more like a rose. And I think it's really starting to come together. I make the petals bigger as we get wider, because if you think about it, a rose, as it starts to bloom and become open, the petals on the outside are bigger and loose, maybe even falling off, and the ones in the very center are so tight. I absolutely love quinacridone rose for this because it's such a bright and just cheerful rosy color. You don't have to add anything to it. It goes from the dark to the light, and it just has so much dimension to it. Now I'm satisfied with how the rose looks. I think it's taking up a good amount of space. So I'm going to mix some French ultramarine and the new gamboge, and I'm going to make a green. And for this rose, I'm going to lean a little bit more on the blue side with the green. But you can make your green look however you want. And I'm going to push down and make 2 strokes. And they're going to be kind of fat. Fill that in the middle. And then I will put a stem down the middle. So we'll just start from the top and drag it down. I like it a little bit curved, make it a little different. And then every rose has its thorn, right? And we'll put another leaf here. And now here's a trick that might sound a little crazy, but trust me, it works. I'm going to take my number 3 brush, and I'm going to pick up some quinacridone rose with it. And I'm going to use the quinacridone rose on top of the still wet green. And I'm going to make lines to kind of give the leaves its dimension. Now, I know it sounds a little crazy, but if you ever see the leaves of a rose, sometimes they have some really odd coloring in there, and the quinacridone rose kind of works with the green to mute it and cancel it out. So it has a really nice texture to it when you do this. Remember, this is a loose painting. It doesn't have to be hyper realistic. It can be a little bit fun and fantasy. Now I will clean my brush because it probably has a little green on it, and I'll get some more quinacridone rose, and I'm going to write rose with the paint onto the painting. Remember, perfection is boring. We are looking for charming, and I think this rose is fairly charming, don't you think? After all, art is supposed to feel peaceful, not stressful. This is a great rose technique where you can just lose yourself painting each petal, just kind of in a quiet meditation. Thank you for making bad art with me. I think it turned out pretty good.